Hello and welcome to another episode of Without Having Kicked a Ball. It's me that's starting the show off today for the first time first time we've done it this time. Anyway, we're gonna start off. We've got lots to cover, so let me introduce you to who is joining me today. So first of all, obviously the man whose channel this is on, Mr. TubeMix. Hello, mate.
Hello there. Yeah, good to be here, and yeah, good. Let's get going.
And as usual, we have got the football mastermind that is Mr. Benkani. Hello, mate. You're right.
Hello, Joe. Thank you for that intro. I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. Right. So we're going to start the show with some breaking news that's broke over the last couple of days, and just within the last hour or two, Fabrizio Romano has reported that Thomas Tuchel has agreed to be the new England manager. I'll get the thoughts of the boys in a moment. I just want to sort of give my two pence first. Obviously, I'm a Chelsea fan, so I see Thomas Tuchel in a great light, Champions League winning manager, very good in the cup competitions, got to finals, which we didn't win, but got to finals nevertheless. But not so great in the league. So, in terms of pure the way that international works, I think because it's a lot of one-off kind of cup scenarios as international football is, I think it works pretty well for Tuchel game-wise. Now, what we do know from his spells in management, Chelsea and Bayern Munich, I'm thinking most recent examples, is that the man management side of things is not particularly, has been known to not particularly be as strong as his tactical side. Now that is an obvious downside for me because I think the one thing that England managers are well known for, I think about Southgate, I think about Hodgson. I don't not so much Capello because I know he wasn't really don't think he wasn't well liked by the England players, but he definitely wasn't the what very well thought of. But Sven was another one in terms of man management and you know creating that squad harmony. It's so crucial, especially leading up to things like a World Cup or a Euros or. And I know a lot of the talk has been about it either being Guardiola or Tuchel. Now, I don't really think there's any kind of scenario where Guardiola leaves City, unless obviously the charges, but that's not what we're talking about today. So I think Tuchel was probably the only big name that would have been available. I think the other one that was mentioned was Frank Lampard. That seems a better fit to me. But yeah, we'll get into it. We'll see what the boys think. Ben, I know you've got probably a lot of more thoughts than Will as somebody that watches England a lot more regularly. So I'm going to go to Will first,
No worries.
which might be a
No.
bad decision, but we'll do it. So yeah, Will, what are you thinking, Thomas Tuchel?
Well, this is certainly an interesting appointment. I thought that the FA would go for an English manager. Not so long ago on this show, some said his preference would certainly be an English manager, and I thought the FA would play it safe. I thought, honestly, Lee Carsley would follow the Southgate route and be appointed permanently as England manager. But no, clearly they've decided to be a bit more bold in their choice. Um, Tuchel is a risk because as I was saying to you off air in voice messages, um, he does have a track record of falling out with people easily, and so I think that could maybe work against him. However, like you said, George, he does have a very ruthless streak. If players that he doesn't think have played well, he's not afraid to tell them so and to drop them to the bench or even drop them out of the squad altogether. It'll be also interesting for Tuchel because being in club management, international management as a whole different kettle of fish, really, because it must be quite weird because when you've been in club management, you're sort of day-to-day training with the players, but with international games, they're only occasional, so it'll be interesting to see how we'd adjust to that. And some managers suit club management better than international management. Some managers maybe suit international management more than club management, or some maybe suits both. But time will tell, and it'll be interesting to see what happens under Tuchel.
Yeah, nice one. I completely agree with what you've said there, Will. Come on then, Ben, hit me with it.
Yeah, well, I think you both raised some good points there, and I think for me personally, I back the appointment, and I'm quite happy with it. I know people will say he's German, it's iffy, and I get that argument, I do. But for England, I think it's all about making the next step, which is obviously winning a World Cup or Euros, and Gareth Southgate did great work, but we were nearly, not quite. I think, I'm hoping anyway, I think we can make that next step under Tuchel. But as you mentioned, it'd be interesting to see how he handles the players, because he can be have fractured relationships at times. And we've seen Lee Carsley, he's got a bit more ballsy with his squad selections, whereas Southgate had the players he relied upon. So it'd be interesting to see what stance Tuchel takes. But yeah, the original question, I think Tuchel is the best appointment available, and hopefully he wins us a World Cup or Euros.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a good point as well that you mentioned about him being German, because you know for a fact that there is going to be a section of England fans, which there shouldn't be, that are not going to gel with a German being the England manager. But yeah, I mean, in terms of star power and a name, he is one of the biggest names. And the one thing that Gareth Southgate doesn't get credit for is he kind of took us from being like the world's joke. I think about not qualifying for Euro 2008. I think about Rob Green spilling that shot against the USA. I think about the Iceland defeat.
Yeah.
We've gone from being a joke to world football to being one of the elite, and we need a manager that backs that up. And Thomas Tuchel is an elite manager, despite the fact that the majority of his last couple of jobs haven't gone as well as he might have hoped. Like even the Chelsea job, the second season
he did well, didn't he? It was the second season it went.
Yeah, so I don't want to kind of shoot myself in the foot by saying something that's wrong, but I'm sure when he left we were top of the table, or at least in the top four. But
yes,
there
I
were
think you were.
Well, I think he was having rows upstairs, wasn't he? I think that's
there were definite warning signs that things were going to a bit bad, a bit sour there anyway. And of course, Chelsea's new board wanted Graham Potter more than anything.
Yes, they did, yeah.
But that's a completely different conversation for another time. And I think,
of course, we thought that Graham Potter might be in the mix to be the manager as well. So
yeah, I think we talked about it, and I think it would have been a very interesting appointment. But he's turned down some pretty big jobs since leaving Chelsea. He turned down I don't want to get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was the Lyon job that he declined to speak to them.
Yeah,
things like that.
He also was in talks with Leicester, whether he declined them or or they preferred Cooper. I'm not sure, but
And
yeah,
I
Brighton as
think he
well.
wanted a break, didn't he? Just wanted a complete reset.
yeah.
Yeah,
Take
don't
some
forget.
time out from management. So
The last thing I'll say on Tuchel, though, is that you made a good point there, Jordan. You said that about the environment, and Southgate did great to create that, and Tuchel's ruthless. So it'd be interesting to see what the environment is like now. But
Yeah, no,
I think
definitely.
I think with the pedigree that Tuchel brings with him, I think the players will be excited.
Yeah, I should think they would be. Although I think a lot of the ones that were Chelsea players at the time that he was there, that he had kind of um, discarded, as it were, or not had great relationships with, might make it a little bit difficult at first. But I would hope that it would all be a bit of a clean slate. And yeah, I'll just touch on what I did say about the environment. I said it off air, and I wasn't really going to mention it because I think it's quite controversial that I said that. I basically said off air that I felt like Frank Lampard was a better choice when you reflect the Southgate. Southgate's where Southgate was in his career when he became England manager to where Frank Lampard is now. It seems like a much better fit in terms of England. But to get an elite manager that wins things wherever he goes, you can't argue against it. So we'll see. The jury's out. I mean,
yeah, because he's
obviously
won a
England.
Bundesliga and he's won the Champions League, hasn't he? So
Did he win a Bundesliga?
Um,
I
Don't
thought
think
he
he
did
did.
with Bayern. Yeah.
I,
No, they lost the title. That's why he left.
Oh, sorry.
it was
Right.
Leverkusen won the Bundesliga,
He
didn't
left
he?
Oh,
because
Leverkusen. Oh,
basically
right. Okay. Right.
he left because they finished third.
Right. Okay. Right.
So
Yes.
yeah, they finished below even Stuttgart, who had like a generational season, of course. But yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about first of all the weekend's results. Now, as is usually the case with the EFL, there is a very very reduced docket. League One has this season over the international break way more postponements than I've ever seen. But that I suppose that talks more about how all the leagues across England are growing in quality. So there's only two games. We'll start with the first one, and what a game it was. So obviously, Crawley have Rob Elliott at the helm now. Not been the best of starts for him so far, and that continued here. They were beaten 5-3 at home to Shrewsbury. Only Shrewsbury's second win of the season, by the way. Let's get into the goal scorers. The goal scoring was started by Shrewsbury's John Marquis, who scored on the 26th minute. Then an equaliser from Will Swan and 33. Then a red card after two yellows for Flint for Crawley. Then Crawley actually took the lead through Junior Katerna. Then Toto Enciala, he levelled things up before John Marquis scored again with a penalty. And George Lloyd got two goals in the 86th and 92nd before another goal for Crawley from Kelly. So, yeah, as I said, really not gone so well so far for Rob Elliott, but I can see why things might have gone downhill after losing a manager that had basically transformed Crawley. And it's a big first appointment in league football for Rob Elliott. For Shrewsbury, they've not picked up the points that maybe some performances should have done. Paul Hurst returned to the club after the season that he was there, where obviously they got to the playoffs. They had Dean Henderson in goal. It's not gone so well so far, but you know. So this is the kind of games when you're down there that you need to win, and they've done that. So, that's what's most important. The only other game in League One was what I'm going to call the Johnson Clark Harris derby. Now, for those who don't know, Johnson Clark Harris was with Peterborough last season and was frozen out of the club because of his refusal to sign a contract. Now, because of that, when he left as a free agent in the summer, he joined Steve Evans at his old club, Rotherham. Now, here's where it gets interesting. It was 3-3, Peterborough and Rotherham. The scoring opened by Peterborough, thanks for a goal from Donnelly. 2 minutes later, Sam Nombe equalised on 19 minutes. Then Rotherham took the lead, Malik Wilkes on 23. Then, on the 45th minute in injury time, Johnson Clark Harris popped up to score a goal that definitely stings for posh fans to make it 3-1.
Pantomime villain.
Yeah, definitely. And he is very much that kind of character as well, by the way, that would be that kind of pantomime villain.
Yes.
Although, at the start of the second half, it was 2 goals in 3 minutes. An own goal from Rafferty, and then a goal from the very young, promising centre-back, Emmanuel Fernandez. That's all there was in League One. We're going to go back over the leagues and do a bit of a state of play, look at the tables, see what we think looks good. But first, we'll get into League Two. Now, 10 games. I watched 2 of those, so we'll focus on those before we do the rest of them. Chesterfield and Notts County in a game among 2 of the favourites to do well. Notts County have started well, and things have tailed off just a tiny bit in the last couple of weeks. And Chesterfield, started pretty well. Obviously, they beat Crewe 5-0 at Gresty Road, but it's been a mixed start for them. They're kind of sort of mid-table at the moment. It was 2-2 anyway. The goal scoring opened by Paddy Madden on the 6th minute. Then 8 minutes later, Alessandro Jatta scored for Notts County to equalise. Then 2 names from the past. Will Grigg on the 74th minute before David McGoldrick in the 94th minute scored a goal which he, of course, dedicated to his ex-Sheffield United teammate, George Baldock, who tragically died just the day before the Greece v England game. And of course, we would like to pass on our condolences to his family, his friends, and all of his former clubs and teammates. 31 is no age. And yeah, it's incredibly sad. So rest in peace, George. Right, moving on, because that's always emotional to talk about something like that. Yeah, this was a great game against 2 teams that are kind of similar levels, I would say. I think they cancelled each other out pretty well. Great attacking play, and I think a draw was the right result for sure. Again, we're going to talk about the tables shortly after this, so we'll talk about the impact of that draw in a few minutes. Now, to the main event, as I would say, at 3:00 at the Eco Power Stadium, as it's now called. 2 teams doing very well in League Two came up against each other. Doncaster Rovers have been, for the most part, fantastic, with a few blips here and there. And Crewe Alexandra have, again, similar to Donny, few blips here and there, but for the most part, pretty decent. This game was finished 1-1. A absolute worldie of a goal from Max Conway put the Alex 1-0 up, and Donny equalised on the break thanks to Kyle Hurst Now, the first thing that I want to mention about this is that Donny did have a goal disallowed fairly early on. It was a corner in, and it was in fact, it was one of the most unbelievable saves from the goalkeeper, Philip Marshall, and it was headed in by Billy Sharp, who was in an offside position. So that instantly would have obviously put the Alex on the back foot. Donny were very good, very, very good at passing the ball around. It was two teams that I feel like play very similar styles. But then, of course, it was a bit of brilliance. Max Conway picks up the ball from Zach Williams. He kind of starts his run. It seems like he might have a shot edge of the box. Instead, he sort of dummies for the shot and sits two Doncaster defenders down and slots it past the goalkeeper for 1-0. An unbelievable goal and unbelievable confidence. As far as I'm aware, that's his first professional goal, which is unbelievable. And from that point, Donny mixed things up. I think they changed formation. They brought on Kyle Hurst. And what's disappointing about this is it was from a Crew Alex long throw where we kind of committed everybody forward for the long throw. It's cleared out by Donny, and they're in a sort of a 2-on-1 situation. I think it's passed across for Kyle Hurst, who scores his first goal, and I think the commentator said it was his first goal in a year. So yeah, the points are shared. Honestly, I'm disappointed a little. I feel like we did enough defensively to keep Donny out and see it out, and I think that it's disappointing that it's our own mistake that's caused the goal. That being said, Donny are a team of incredible quality, so I don't know whether you can feel aggrieved about it just being a point or not. So let's carry on with the rest of League Two. Wimbledon back in action in the league for the first time in a while at home. They faced Mike Williamson's Carlisle and gave them an absolute pasting. Matty Stevens with a hat-trick with goals on the 8th, 39th and 50th minute, with a Cameron Harper own goal in the 48th minute as well, in between. A fantastic result for Wimbledon, who I'm sure will definitely have felt the home crowd with them, and not the best of starts for Mike Williamson either. Not great. I think that does leave, again, we'll talk about the tables in a minute, but it is important to note that result leaves Carlisle bottom of the EFL on goal difference. The team above them were Morecambe, and they got a shock win against Barrow, who are another one of those teams that have been doing very well, very, very well. So an away win for Morecambe at Barrow, thanks to a goal from Ben Tollett, which again sees their kind of rise in form. That's kind of brought a couple of what was defeats into draws, and now a couple of wins here and there. We're starting to see things just get a bit more interesting down towards the bottom, which is always good. Cheltenham hosted Swindon Town, and they were beaten. It started thanks to a goal from 2 goals in 4 minutes from George Cox and Will Wright for Swindon. They were 2-0 up at the break away from home. Then Joel McGregor made it 3-0 on 47 minutes before the comeback was initiated by George Miller on 63 and then Ethan Archer on 78. Another one that two teams that haven't been amazing so far this season. Very disappointed by particularly Mike Flynn and Cheltenham. We know, based on his experiences at this level, that he's a good manager at this level, but just kind of feels like maybe it was a bit of a Nathan Jones, and it was that everything that was around him at Newport meant that was the right sort of setting for him, if you know what I mean. Now then, another team who have been doing very well, but have suffered a little bit of a blip, are Gillingham, and they were again beaten at home by a struggler in Accrington Stanley. Now, they went 1-0 up thanks to a goal from Armani Little. This is Gillingham, sorry. And then the comeback was started by Ben Woods and then finished by Dara Costello, the Burnley loanee, who has had a good couple of games for Aki as they sort of climb their way back up the table.
Is that the Irish one? Sorry, George.
Yeah. You might know him because he in Vincent Kompany's first game for Burnley, he started on the right.
Yeah, was it? They were playing Huddersfield, I think.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Continuing on. In a battle of two teams that have been incredibly hard to kind of figure out what the level is, Harrogate Town faced Newport County, with Harrogate being the victors. A goal from fullback Toby Sims on the 40th minute, the difference maker in this one. Two of the kind of favourites to go up played at Stadium MK. MK Dons hosting a resurgent Port Vale, who again, after a bit of a blip at the start, have absolutely roared ahead of everybody else. Antoine Hackford, the Sheffield United loanee, got the only goal of the game for them on the 77th minute. A great win for the Vale and for the manager, Darren Moore. Grimsby Town and travelled to Salford and got another well-earned victory away from home. 2 goals from Luca Barrington on the 1st and the 46th minute for them saw Salford off. There was a goal in between that from Salford striker Cole Stockton in the 15th. Again, another one, obviously owned by the class of 92. A good manager for this level, Carl Robinson, is not really working out at the moment for Salford, and they, importantly for me, they travel to Gresty Road on Saturday, so we'll see what they're made of. And then the final game saw Bradford City travel to Tranmere Rovers, and it was their former striker Andy Cook who hit 2 goals, one in the 23rd and one in the 72nd, to see off Rovers. Right, so with that out of the way, where do we want to start first? Do we want to start at the bottom of the English football with League 2, or do you want to start at the top with the Prem and work our way down? What do we think, boys?
I think, me personally, because you've stuck with the EFL, I think carry on with it and then work our way up to the Premier League. But
yes, I think so. Yeah, that makes most sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll do that. So, I'll go through the whole table, and then we'll pick out some teams that we feel like talking about. We'll start with the bottom. Both on 7 points. 24th place, Carlisle, and 23rd place, Morecambe. 22nd with 9 points, Accrington Stanley. 21st and 20th respectively with 10 points, Cheltenham Town and Bromley. 19th, 18th and 17th with 11 points each, Tranmere Rovers, Swindon and Colchester. With 12 points, 16th and 15th, Salford and MK Dons. 14th with 14 points, Harrogate. 13th and 12th respectively with 15, Newport and Chesterfield. 11th and 10th respectively with 16 points, Fleetwood and Wimbledon. Ninth with 17 points, Crew Alexandra. 8th and 7th with 18 points, Grimsby Town and Bradford City. And then all on 19 points. 19 points. 6th place Barrow, 5th place Gillingham, 4th place Walsall, and 3rd place Notts County. Second on 20 points, Doncaster Rovers. And top of the table with 11 points, it's Port Vale. So, where do we want to go with this one?
Well, me personally, and because it's huge or Crew fan, I'm gonna talk about the league leaders, or perhaps get your thoughts, see how you're feeling. But I think obviously it's still early days. We've seen that Darren Moore can be a good manager. He's a good motivator. Gets the best out of his squads. I don't see them staying there, but for me, when I saw that, that was a surprise, really. And with you being a Crew fan, I bet that's a sight for sore eyes.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of difficult because I really like Darren Moore. But obviously I really
remember him
hate the
being
Vale.
West Brom manager. So
Yeah, so obviously he's had a lot of jobs recently. He did okay at West Brom, although he couldn't save them from being relegated. He went to Sheffield Wednesday and performed absolute miracles in that playoff semi. And then went to Huddersfield and didn't do very well at all. For a manager of that caliber to be in League Two anyway is pretty shocking.
Yeah.
But he seems to have started to get his stamp on things. Obviously, he came last season, and the season kind of ended in a whimper for the Vale. But it seems to be going really well. Yeah, it's definitely difficult to talk about without some bias, but you can't deny that he's doing a good job. Yeah, they've started really well. Like you said, I can't really see them kind of staying top three. I think there are some teams that we'll talk about where the quality is going to shine through. I think specifically Doncaster definitely will be up there. I think Gillingham will probably end up being up there as well, even though they've had a bit of a bad spell recently. But I can probably see them doing playoffs because they do look really, really strong. But like you said, early days, and we'll see where they end up.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone's got another specific team they want to talk about. I don't know about you, Will.
No, I haven't. No.
I think that the only thing that I'd like to sort of mention is there's two things. Firstly, Walsall. Last season they had Matt Sadler as the manager, and there was no, the kind of style of play wasn't really there. The results were pretty poor, performances were poor, and then this season they have just been absolutely fantastic for the main, and it's so interesting to see what sometimes a summer, just giving managers time, it makes such a difference. Yeah,
Like
for sure.
I know, obviously different league, but look at Arteta, what he's doing at Arsenal. He's been given time, so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then the other one that I wanted to mention really were MK Dons, who again just don't seem to have recovered whatsoever from the 8-1, might even have been 9-1 playoff semi-final aggregate defeat to Crawley.
Yeah.
And started the season terribly under Williamson. I think he probably knew that what was coming. I think he jumped before he was pushed. And they've hired Scott Lindsay, which, by the way, is a great get for this level, considering what he did with Crawley, and he probably could have stayed there and even gone higher up. and it's so far not kicked into gear just yet. Early days, but it's just interesting. It's examples of teams kind of, within Warsaw. They haven't got a load of money. They gave Sadler time, and they're reaping the rewards. Whereas MK Dons have chucked a lot of money at recruitment and things over an extended period of time. Looked like they'd found the formula with Williamson, and then it's all kind of crumbled.
Well,
just
goes
a little
to
bit.
show you, throwing all money doesn't necessarily guarantee you success.
Yeah. By the way, go on. Sorry, man.
I was just gonna say that's a nice segue to talk about Salford, or to mention Salford, because the owners and the pedigree they have. Don't get me wrong, Salford, they've achieved some success and some good promotions. I think back to back at certain times, but
Yeah.
I think in League Two it hasn't quite happened, or they haven't kicked on as they would have hoped. Similar to Darren Moore, Carl Robinson is a good appointment for that level, but again, it hasn't quite happened. And it'd be interesting to see the direction that Salford go down in the next couple of years, because if they're not careful, they could get into a relegation dogfight again.
Yeah. Before we move on to League One, I just want to mention as well that a huge majority of the league have played 11 games now. There's a couple that have played 10 games, but something that's worth taking into account is that Wimbledon in 10th have played 8 games, and Fleetwood in 11th have played 9. So we're not exactly seeing a true reflection of where they should be just yet. So that's one to keep an eye on. Okay, moving into League One now, and starting once again at the bottom of the table. In 24th, rock bottom with 1 point with 9 played, Cambridge United. In 23rd with 4 points, Burton Albion. In 22nd with 7 points, Crawley Town. In 21st, joint with 20th and 19th. So in the last relegation place on goal difference, Shrewsbury with 8 points, as well as Northampton and Leyton Orient in 20th and 19th respectively. A huge gap between them and 18th, 17th and 16th. Bristol Rovers, Reading and Wigan with 13 points. 15th, 14th and 13th all have 14 points. That's Rotherham, Bolton and Stevenage. 12th, 11th, 10th and 9th all have 15 points. That's Peterborough, Barnsley, Blackpool, Huddersfield. 8th, 7th and 6th all have 16 points. Charlton, Exeter, Stockport. 5th with 17 points, Wycombe Wanderers. 4th with 18 points, Lincoln City. And joint 3rd and 2nd, Mansfield and Wrexham with 20 points. And then, obviously, top of the table by 2 points, Birmingham City with 22. So, my major thing here is that a lot of the kind of favourites haven't really done that well, or have started off either really poorly and are getting back into the groove, or started off well and then have tailed off.
I was going to say the exact same thing, George.
I'm thinking Rotherham were a great example of a team that started really pretty badly for them, and then have picked up points over the last couple of weeks. Bolton, just above them, are another example of a team that had started really badly and then have slowly picked points up. Huddersfield absolutely blitzed the league the first few weeks, but have then just stalled a little bit. And I'm looking as well at Peterborough, who are a little bit transitional at the moment after losing so many of their key players in the summer. Now, obviously, the flip side of that is you look at this top six, and apart from maybe Birmingham, Wrexham, and Stockport, Wickham, Lincoln, Mansfield, in great positions and playing great football and doing really well, like, despite being teams that weren't really fancied,
Yes.
I'm thinking specifically of, sorry, Ben, I'll let you yeah. I'm thinking of Mansfield and the Clough, like, incredible work being done by him. Scabala at Lincoln, finally, we're starting to see, why he was heralded as such a great appointment for them. And Matt Bloomfield at Wickham, replacing Gareth Ainsworth, and kind of, a lot was touted of his managerial ability, and we're seeing that now. It's fantastic for League One and the EFL.
Yeah, I think you summed it up well, George. All I was going to say is on Mansfield, as well, they're doing very, very well, as you said, because as you said, they were a team that weren't particularly fancied to do as well. Yes, it's still early days, but they got promoted last season, so hats off to them. As you said about Bolton and Rotherham, 15th and 14th doesn't look great viewing if you're a fan of their clubs, but on the flip side, it is only 6 points off second, I believe. So they've done well to pick up some form again and show, their old selves, if you like.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting as well, like, League One is extremely tight.
Yes.
Like, extremely tight. There is 8 points separating second and 18th. So
Exactly.
League One is absolutely watertight at the moment. The one thing that does need to be mentioned is how poor the sort of bottom 4 teams have been. I'll include Leyton Orient and Northampton in there as well, because obviously there's that 5-point gap between 18th and 19th. Cambridge United have played well in some games, but are defensively pretty shocking. Gary Monk hasn't been in a job before Cambridge for, I think, about 4 years.
He was excellent at Swansea, by the way.
Yeah, but it did seem like a great appointment, and that's worth mentioning. It's just not gone very well at all.
Yeah.
There's a 7-point gap between them at the bottom and safety with 20th, which is still doable. It's not, it's still early days in the season yet. What I would say, as Will always says, after Christmas, if they're still in that position, then you'd start to worry. It's also worth mentioning that there are a lot of, as with League Two, there are a lot of teams that have played mostly 10 games, some that have played 11, and some that have even played 9 due to like international fixtures and stuff. I think it would be remiss of us to not talk about the top 2, Wrexham and Birmingham. Birmingham, I don't know whether you saw this. I don't think I mentioned it last week. When Charlton beat Birmingham, Chris Davies, the Birmingham manager, said that Charlton had spent a lot of money in the league, despite the fact that Birmingham 3 times during the last transfer window broke the League One record.
To me, I think I did see that, and to me, 1, it's hypocritical, and 2, it seems quite a defensive response for me.
Yeah, most importantly, it's a terrible take. It's just like, read the room, mate.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've been unreal, but you would kind of expect them to be. I didn't think I'll be honest and say I felt like Wrexham would probably be a team that would challenge, but didn't think they would take to the league so well. And they have. And there's not really too much to kind of say more about Wrexham or Birmingham, really, because they're such superstar teams that that level of success is kind of expected.
Yeah.
So should we move on to the Championship or anything that you want to say, Will? Any other teams that you want to pick out?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I just want to say it'd be great to see, Birmingham City back into the Championship and, maybe, back into the Premier League as a former Premier League club for many years. So, that's what I want to say on that.
Yeah, of course. League Cup winners in 10-11 as well.
Yes, beating Arsenal, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Back when it was the Carling Cup.
Just two more from me that I think it would be
Blackpool.
silly.
Is Blackpool one of them?
Yeah, that was literally what I was going to say. The turnaround at Blackpool, ridiculous. What a story. I love it. I absolutely love it. What a story. And Reading, any excuse to talk about Reading and the ownership crisis they're having is absolutely an opportunity that we should take. As far as I know, still not much movement on the takeover of Reading. It just needs to be sorted. Otherwise that club is in serious trouble. I do think what else is worth mentioning is their manager, Ruben Selles, has been heavily linked with the Cardiff job. In fact, I think I've seen in the press that they have actually formally approached him, and that just doesn't bode well for me. But we will see. Let's. Should we get into the Championship? I think that's a great idea.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, with the Championship, bottom with 24, but joint with Portsmouth in 23rd. It's Cardiff with 5 points, Portsmouth as well with 5 points. 22nd with 7 points, QPR, Queen's Park Rangers. 21st and 20th respectively, Luton and Coventry. 19th and 18th respectively with 9 points, Preston and Millwall. 17th with 10 points, Stoke City. 16th, 15th and 14th respectively with 11 points, Bristol City, Sheffield Wednesday and Plymouth. 13th, 12th and 11th and 10th with 12 points, Hull, Derby, Swansea and Oxford. 9th with 14 points, Middlesbrough. 8th and 7th respectively with 15 points, Blackburn and Norwich. 6th and 5th with 16 points, Watford and Leeds. 4th with 17 points, West Bromwich Albion. 3rd with 18 points, Burnley. And 2nd and 1st respectively with 19 points, Sheffield Wednesday and Sunderland. It's worth mentioning, by the way, that Sheffield United would be top if not for the 2-point deduction.
Yes, I was just going to say that. I think also, I might be wrong on this, I'm not sure, but I think Sheffield United are the only unbeaten team left in the Football League, I think.
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's a great job being done by Chris Wilder, and I think they look set to bounce back. Having said that, the Championship is the hardest league to get out of. We know that, but on the other end of the spectrum, teams like Coventry not doing too well. Having said that, we know they're quite often slow starters and they tend to blossom. Obviously, Sunderland doing well with the
Yeah,
young
I
team.
wanted to talk about Sunderland, a club that has
Take
been in
it
so
away
much
then,
trouble,
Will.
but they're doing so well, aren't they? Reggie the Briss, is it? That is their
Yeah, I,
manager,
I've
and
still got no idea how to pronounce that name because
I think
every
I
single thing
imagine
I
it would
watch
be
says it differently.
Lebris because it's French. So,
yes.
Well, yeah, but on ITV they pronounce it as Regis Lebris, which I
oh,
don't think
okay.
is
Well,
right.
yeah, I'm not
But
sure.
then on other podcasts I listen to, they call him Regis Lebris. So, uh, how the hell do you know if nobody tells you?
Yeah, whatever it is, he's doing a good job.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I
Do
mean
you want
they
to?
just took the championship by storm, didn't they? The first couple of games, and
Yeah, and
yeah,
they've just run with it. I wanted to talk about New Boys Oxford. I think one of us might have predicted them to go down, and don't get me wrong, they still could have. They still can. They've only played, I think, 9 games, but so far they're sitting pretty in 10th. So hats off to the job by the manager and the players. Any teams you want to talk about, George?
For me, it's Coventry and Luton.
Yes,
Um, Luton have been so poor. I
they
can't
have.
I can't wrap my head around it. And even like that first, was it the first game of the season, the Friday night game, the Luton and Burnley,
Yeah, yeah,
where okay they were injury ravished in defence, but they played a ridiculous high line that just allowed Burnley to tear them apart every single time, and I can't quite work out why they're having such a tough time. Because they've not lost loads of quality. Yeah, one or two, all right. Ogbene is a good player, for example. Barkley was incredible for them, and they lost him. But I don't feel like it's that much of a departure from the team they had when they were in the Premier League. So I really can't quite work it out.
yeah. It's a hard one to fathom. What I will say, just touching on that, is it's an example of how tough the championship is and can be. You know, last season in the Premier League, if their fans were expecting to walk it and get straight back up, I think that's quite naive, to be honest. Because we've seen that 9 times out of 10 that isn't the case, and it is a very tough league to get out of.
yes,
So yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, there's a couple of really baffling things going on in the championship at the moment, and the one that I do think is Coventry again. Pretty much the same team they had. I got to admit that I can't think of very many departures.
they,
That
and
Callum
they,
O'Hare, Gus Hamer, but obviously Heyman left last season.
yes,
Um, and it just doesn't seem to be working out for them now. I always prefaced it when we first started doing this show that they start slow every season, and that's true. But it just feels like that's going to wear thin eventually. I'm not
yeah,
saying get rid of Mark Robbins or anything like that because he's an unbelievable manager and what he's done with Coventry through the years where they had to play games at Sixfields in Northampton or when they were playing at St Andrews and that man has done amazing things for that club and does not deserve the sack. but I just can't work out what it is about the team that means they start so slowly. I don't understand it, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to fathom, similar to the Luton one. And you mentioned the poachers. They've even added quality, like Thomas Asante, for example. And they've Ellis Sims, who was formerly at Everton, arguably too good for the Championship. That remains to be seen, really, because he still hasn't played enough games for me. I do think they will be all right, but as you say, it needs to start clicking soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. A couple of things that I wanted to touch on as well. In pre-season, I highlighted Hull under Tim Volter. Again, started pretty terribly, but has picked up pretty well. Not quite heart attack football, but it certainly is something. They'll seem to be clicking into gear a little bit for them. Another thing that I highlighted and said, well, one of my picks to go down potentially, Watford have been unbelievable,
Mm-hmm.
and have just defied expectations in every way. And again, that's one of those where it's so difficult to predict the Championship, and it's also so difficult to predict what will happen when you've got a young manager in place. You know,
Yeah.
like looking at guys, even somebody like Mike Williamson, let's say for instance, who's sort of mid-40s. That's a young manager. You don't necessarily know what these young guys are going to do for you, and what kind of level they're going to give you. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it's a great job being done by him. And I suppose the last one for me is Middlesbrough. Just slightly underwhelmed by them. Really thought that they would take the bull by the horns this season, and Michael Carrick has done a pretty decent job with them in the last couple of seasons. But I just like to see them kick on a little bit more, because I think they've got another couple of gears in them, and we don't see the full potential of that team enough, really.
No, well, I agree. Because I remember watching it a fair bit of them when they got to the playoffs, and they deservedly did that. And obviously, Carrick being affiliated with United, I wanted them to go up. It wasn't to be. But since then, they've obviously had good spells and moments, but that's all it's really been. They haven't really kicked on from there, and it's been quite disappointing to see, really. But overall, as you say, he's done a decent job.
Yeah. Um. Anything that you boys want to highlight in the Championship?
I just wanted to say, Derby have done solidly. I can't remember where I predicted them, but they were another team that I picked out in the pre-season show, and I think if you're a Rams fan, you'll be satisfied with the work
Yeah, they do
that's
seem to
going
be.
on
They
there.
do seem to have had a good start, don't they? Derby after having a
Yeah,
rocky few years.
yeah, steadied the ship a bit.
Yes. Yep.
And finally, moving on to the Premier League, starting once again at the bottom. Two teams tied on 1 point. Wolves in 20th and Southampton in 19th. In 18th on 3 points, Crystal Palace. In 17th on 4 points, Ipswich Town. 16th with 5 points, Everton. 15th with 6 points, Leicester City. Tied with 8 points, 14th, 13th, and 12th, respectively. Man United, Bournemouth, and West Ham United. 3 teams with 10 points, 11th, 10th, and 9th. Brentford, Nottingham Forest, and Tottenham Hotspur. 8th with 11 points, Fulham. 7th and 6th, respectively, with 12 points, Newcastle and Brighton. Tied with 14 points, 5th and 4th, respectively, Aston Villa and Chelsea. 3rd and 2nd with 17 points, Arsenal and Man City. And then top of the table by 1 point, it's Liverpool. So, the one thing I want to highlight, again, we kind of did it last week when I said that I wanted to highlight the jobs done by, how poor some of the top teams have been and how well some of the managers in mid-table have done. But it would be remiss of us, I suppose, to talk about somebody like United in 14th, which we're not going to do a lot of because we speak about Man United as the main thing most weeks.
Yes.
And similarly to Spurs in 9th. I mean, poor starts to the season.
It's been a bit of a weird one, hasn't it, for Spurs, really?
Yeah, I also think it's worth noting as well that I think the quality of the teams, like especially in mid-table, the quality of all the teams in mid-table is mostly the same. So, and I do think that's due to the good jobs that have been done by the managers in mid-table, where it is a lot more difficult to kind of batter a team like a Brentford, like a Forest. That being said, I think that the quality of a Tottenham or a Man United should shine through still. Like I said, it's just kind of general thoughts, because I don't kind of want to go over something that we go over every week as the main focus. Arne Slot
I wanted to talk about Southampton. I did.
Yeah.
Go on then, Will, fire away.
And, obviously Russell Martin is finding that the Premier League is a very different beast to the Championship. And Southampton, well, yeah, it's not a good start at all. And you have to worry for them, if they don't get the win sooner or later in the next 2 or 3 weeks, then Russell Martin is going to be clinging on for his job, I think.
Yeah, well,
I think. Go on.
I was just going to say, performances on the whole have been decent. It's been a case of nearly but not quite for Southampton.
At this point, doesn't matter about performances. You've got to get points on the board.
Yes, true. I think.
To be honest, in Ben's defence, though, if you're playing well but you're not getting the points, what you would say, if you continue to play that way, the points do come eventually.
Well,
yes,
that is very valid.
But I don't disagree with what you're saying, and Wolves as well, although it's slightly different for Wolves because they've had a pretty difficult fixture list, whereas Southampton has varied.
Have still been in the Premier League. They've not come up like Southampton. So
the one team I want to talk about, and it's only one team from me, and it might come as a surprise because I'm a United fan, but it's Liverpool. And I just want to say, me personally, probably wouldn't be on my own here. A lot of people would have been the same, but I wrote Liverpool off this season. I expected them to have a similar season to the one that United did under David Moyes. Granted, the squad from Liverpool is a lot better and was left in good care by Klopp.
But I agree with you. I expected Liverpool to struggle because of how long Klopp was there, and I thought they would really struggle. But Slaughter seemed to, pardon the pun, slotted in.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the best way to describe it,
He's
really,
just
because
picked up where Klopp has left off. So
the
yeah,
transition has been so smooth, and with the way they play it, obviously it's his own style sprinkled with a bit of Klopp's old style, and I think that's something that's pleased the Liverpool fans. So fair play to them. I hope it. Don't get me wrong. I hope it doesn't continue, but for now, fair play.
I think, yeah, I think it's also worth mentioning that
I want to talk
I
about
don't.
Arsenal as well. Actually, you know how
Yeah, just
the
give me a second, Will.
sorry.
Twice you've interrupted me, but there you go. No, I think that it's interesting because I feel like the transition from Klopp to Slot, they don't play too differently. But then I feel like the difference is would probably be very easy to coach and quick to ingrain with players of the quality that Liverpool have.
Yeah, they
Yes.
got a great
So,
squad,
so
haven't they?
that's what that's what you want to kind of talk about. For me, I think it would be um, City, just because again we've talked about them a few times. I'm so interested in what comes next without Rodri.
Yes, it will
Um,
be interesting, won't it?
it's so, because, and again we talked about it last week. They looked so different without him and without Haaland to fall back on because obviously he was for the most part kept pretty quiet by Fulham. Now that begs the question of if Haaland can be kept quiet and City aren't firing on one particular day, let's say, does that leave City open to drop more points than they would have done if they didn't have somebody like Rodri? And the thing is, some people might say, oh, they're not over reliant on Rodri, but like you can see it on the pitch, you can see how much space teams have without somebody like Rodri who kind of just ushers into that, like moves into that kind of space and blocks off the lanes and the options. I mean,
Pep hasn't quite figured it out, have they? How to solve the Rodri dilemma.
I think he will, though.
he probably will. Let's face it, they'll probably win the league no matter what. I just think it's
Well, I think maybe Arsenal could win the league actually.
yeah. I mean, and I know that's what you want to talk about. I do just want to say that another thing that worries me about City, but it's always kind of been the same for the last 3 or 4 seasons. If they've obviously De Bruyne injuries, Rodri injuries. If Haaland gets injured, or even if they have a couple of injuries in defence, that squad's pretty threadbare, isn't it? And that always concerns me about City, and yet they always find a way. I'm just kind of trying to play
But then
devil's.
De Bruyne often comes back in time, doesn't he? So
Yeah, he does, but it's always a concern for me with City how light that squad is.
yes,
Yeah.
no, that is true. Yeah,
They, as you say, though, they do find a way, I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but they won the league without a recognised striker. For me, Rodri's their most important player. Everything goes through him. So if I was Pep and City, I'd probably go into the market in January, but they won't panic by. So
no,
yeah,
no,
being
they won't panic buy. No, they're wiser than that, aren't they? City, yeah.
yeah. But before we move on, we know you wanted to speak about Arsenal, so
Yes.
fire away.
Well, I mean, I think Arsenal could be really in a good chance of winning the league because they've found two ways to play. One is, to good attacking football, but the other is to sort of, park the bus and make it tight, and that's what good teams do. Teams
Dark
that
arts.
win the title. So yeah, I think Arsenal could be in a chance if they continue this good form. But as I said previously, the two key games for me is when they play Villa and when they play City again. If they beat Villa and they beat City, they're champions for me.
Yeah, I think that's valid because the saying, attacks win your games, defense win your titles, and we've seen the robustness and the resilience of Arsenal. So
Yes, exactly. I mean, I
that
still think to draw against City at home when they were down to 10 men is still. I think Arteta would have snapped your hand off for that, and they deserve great credit for that.
yeah, yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, not much more from me, to be honest, other than Wolves have had an incredibly difficult fixture list, and I hope they turn it around because I can see Gary O'Neill perhaps struggling to get another job at this level if it goes wrong, even though I think he's a manager that deserves to be at this level. So I really do hope that they can turn it around.
Yeah, time will tell.
Yeah, nothing more from me either.
Nothing more from me. So.
All right, so I think we've covered quite a lot of ground there, discussed quite a few stories, gone through some of the things that we picked out in pre-season as well, which I'm always happy that we did. So I am going to take a back seat now, and I'm going to hand you over to Ben, who's going to talk us through the European competition and some of the stories that come with that related to the European League. So over to you, Ben.
Thank you for that, Jordan. So before we start with the Champions League, I just want to get your overall thoughts on the new format. So I'll start with you, Jordan. How do you think it's going so far? What do you think to it?
Definitely skeptical at first, although obviously we're a couple of match days in now, and I actually really like it, which I didn't think I was going to. It just seems to have made things a little bit more unpredictable because we're getting big teams facing each other more often, which gives the kind of smaller teams a bit of an in terms of moving up the table. So I think it's definitely made the. I don't think it's changed the quality of the games, but I do think it's made it more competitive and on the balance so far a lot more fairer.
Yes, I'd say that's a fair assessment and some things that I was going to say. So we're singing off the same hymn sheet there.
As we do, mate, as we do.
We do. Anything to add from yourself, Will?
Well,
About the
not
format?
really. I think I echo what Jordan said. Obviously we had some slightly surprising results, so yeah, it makes it more unpredictable. And could see some more surprising results to come.
Yes, thank you. And just before we move on to the table, I just want to get your winners for this year's Champions League. So I'll start with you this time, Will. Who do you think?
Oh, okay. Well, obviously Real Madrid have had a great success, haven't they, in the competition, of a good track record. Obviously, they still have Carlo Ancelotti, who's won it before and is a proven winner. So, I guess it'd be between Real Madrid and City. Let's go. Well, if City don't win the league, then I'll say they'll win the Champions League. But if City do win the league, then I don't think they'll win the Champions League. Oh, right. Well, I've got to make one choice. Okay, I think I'll go for Real Madrid. Yeah.
Thank you. I think those two teams are going to be most people's bets. What about you, George?
Yeah, I think, again, it's incredibly basic to say Real Madrid, but I just don't think you can kind of see past it, apart from City and maybe Bayern Munich. But, I don't think there are many teams on the level, if any, on the level of Real Madrid. Maybe, obviously, City, maybe Bayern.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
it for me.
Bayern was one of the ones I was going to go for, but then I thought, well, maybe because Vincent Kompany has not really done it before, he might find it a bit of a struggle. So yeah, that's why I didn't go for Bayern Munich.
Yeah,
but I do think as well, sorry to interrupt, I do think that, as we said, in the most part, what's good about this league stage is, because of the way the fixtures are structured, we might see some teams who may have qualified, bigger teams not qualify. We're probably quite likely to see a lot of teams that wouldn't have qualified before qualify. I think Benfica have won 2 in a row. I think there's quite a few that have won 2 in a row. Obviously, we did see also in the last time Lille beating Real Madrid, which is a shock. Bayern Munich were beaten by Aston Villa.
I don't think anyone expected that one.
So, there's a room for upset. I mean, the other thing I want to see is that, regardless of like London rivalries or Manchester or Liverpool rivalries, whatever, I want all the English teams in Europe to do well. I really do.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
And that's what, like.
It'd be great if Liverpool won the Champions League, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean they have done it before.
It's Istanbul in 2005 against AC Milan.
And then
Spurs,
2021?
2019, I think.
2019 against Spurs, yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, like, I'm not a huge, I like City. I know some people that are City fans. I've been to a City game with a City fan. So we know some City fans. I was buzzing when City won the Champions League because it was an English team. And it solidifies.
Same with me, I was pleased that an English team had won it rather than Real Madrid or Barcelona or Bayern Munich. So
it solidifies English football at the top, which is where it should be and has been. So, I hope that their teams do well, especially with Chelsea being in the Conference League. In terms of the Champions League, it feels pretty low stakes for me as a neutral. So I'm just happy to kind of let it play out and see where it goes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
I won't take you through all the table because there's 36 teams and I'll be here forever. But I'll just pull out some names that are doing well and.
What about the top 8, the ones that are in the qualifying positions?
So
yes, that's a good idea. Yeah.
First, you've got Dortmund. They regained top spot from their emphatic win against Celtic. I think it was like 7-1 or something like that. And then you've got another surprise package in Brest, who play their football in the Ligue A in France. And then below them in third, you've got Benfica making up the top 4. Is Xavi Alonso's Bayer Leverkusen kicking on from a good season last season.
Yeah, I mean,
Fifth,
he was even linked to the Liverpool job, wasn't he, after Klopp's departure?
yes, he was. He was. Fifth and sixth, you've got two English teams in Liverpool and Villa. Villa off the back of a very good win against Bayern Munich,
What a win for them. That was...
as you said, George. Seventh is Thiago Motta's Juventus. In fact, I'm just going to stop it there at Juventus because a name that has cropped up the past couple weeks is Paul Pogba's return. Now, it's been said that he's not going to...
I thought they were mutually agreeing to terminate his contract.
Yes, that's what I was just going to say. It's been agreed that he's not going to play for Juventus, so he's going to play his football elsewhere. But what do you think about that, George?
I haven't got anything in particular to say about the reduction of the ban, other than he always said he was innocent. That being said, I think most footballers do say that. The one thing that I want to mention, and this is a bit of a theory, so I might end up with egg on my face, but one I do think is his potential destination. I watched a video all about Marseille, who obviously have hit the papers or the press for a few reasons. You know, they signed Mason Greenwood. They also signed Wahi from Lens. They were linked with Benjamin Mendy. They brought in Adrian Rabiot. And the video was all about how their transfer policy seems to be kind of getting players with immense amount of quality who've had controversial careers and bringing them in on the cheap.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of put it out there. Call me Mystic Meg if this works. that I think that there is a good chance that Paul Pogba could find himself in Marseille.
I did not have that on my bingo card. You referenced it there, George.
No, it's funny you say that, George, because I actually saw the same thing and I thought the way they've panned themselves out, it could be a good fit to sort of resurrect his career, as you say.
It's also a risky strategy, though, isn't it? Bringing very controversial players.
It is, but if it works out, they see it as smart. They won't care.
Business, yeah.
So, moving back to the table, making up the top 8 is Manchester City. Obviously, as the competition goes on, I see them possibly pushing into the top 4, moving along down the table into some not so pretty places. We have Bayern Munich in 15th, followed by Barcelona. Man. Sorry, George.
It was Will.
Oh, sorry, Will. What did you say?
Oh, no, I was just saying goodness me.
Yeah, good. You're right. So Bayern in 15th, Barcelona in 16th, and Real Madrid in 17th. So granted it's early, but 3 big hitters.
Champions League veterans, if you were.
Yeah, in lower league positions in the table. I do see them being fine. It has only been 2
games. Early days, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. It has only been 2 games played, but it is worth noting. Yes. PSG again, 19th. They've obviously gone for a different strategy.
Yes, because obviously selling Mbappe and Messi's departure into Miami, and
Yeah,
So let me ask you a question. Sorry to interrupt, Will. The top 8 go straight through. Is it then 9th to 20? Is it 9th to 24th going to a playoff?
yes,
And
that's right.
25th to 36th go
Yeah,
out.
they're out. They're out altogether. There's no Europa League drop-ins anymore.
Oh, right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So for me, again, talking about the format, that adds a bit more needle to it, a bit more impetus. So yeah, I welcome it. To be honest, as you said, Joe, I like you again in tandem. Was a bit skeptical at first, but I quite like it now. I've seen it in action. Again, a surprise that they are so low is AC Milan in 32nd place.
gosh,
If
well, I
this,
mean,
Lost
you
both
know, I
games.
even mentioned them,
Right?
didn't I? I gave
yeah,
them a name
yes,
check for the 2005 final against Liverpool. So
yes, they have. You're right, and they have lost both games, Georgia. So I do see them picking up, but I think it's important to note as well that you don't play everybody in this format. You only play for 8 games in total, 4 at home and 4 away. So it'd be interesting to see
Is
how
it
it
the? Sorry,
goes.
Ben. Is it the same 4 teams?
Yes, I believe so.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Because like for AC Milan, for AC Milan, Liverpool, Bayer Leverkusen, it's a difficult chunk, isn't it?
yeah, it is. It is, and they would. I think we've seen with AC Milan that they're a team that have promised a lot, but again, maybe haven't got it quite right. I know they reached the semi-final, I think, a couple years ago, and lost to Inter Milan in the Milan derby. But yeah, they need to sort it out and sort it out soon if they're going to progress or at least get to a playoff. As I
yeah,
said, as I said earlier, there's a lot of teams to cover in this format, so I won't be covering everything. Um, um, unless you both want to talk about anything more, I
no, I don't
think
think so.
I think I'm good to move on to the Europa League, unless you want to talk about the any more teams, George.
Yeah, nothing too major. I just think, like I said, I completely welcome the new Champions League format. Same with the Euro. Well, this is more of an encompassing statement for all of it.
You welcome the new format for the European competitions.
Yeah, for all of it. Yeah, and I like to see teams like Villa, getting the flowers in Europe which they deserve, and that's it really.
Yes. So moving on to the uh, Europa League now. The top 8. First, we have Lazio. Won both the games, 6 points. Same for Lyon in second. Same for Spurs in third, who arguably have been quite lucky to have won both
Yeah,
games.
they've been poor. They've been very poor. I've
Yeah,
watched them
as we've
twice in
seen,
Europe.
under Ange a lot of the time, and it's been no different in Europe. They play a very open style of football, and I think if if they were playing teams who were more clinical, could have been a different story. In fourth, we have FC Bucharest, I think it is, in having won both their games as well, so quite impressive for a team of their calibre. Fifth, we have Anderlecht. Nice to see them doing well, although early days, as I said. Sixth.
Ryan Mason's there. Ryan Mason's favourite to be their new manager.
Yes, I think he pulled himself out the running though. Did
he?
In the past day or two, I think he said he'd rather stay at Spurs. Could be wrong on that, but sixth we have Ajax. Seventh we have Eintracht Frankfurt, and eighth we have Galatasaray. Moving down the table, we have Athletic Club in 11th position. The team which the superstar Nico Williams plays for, perhaps they could expect.
He played for Bilbao.
That is Bilbao, but they've changed.
Oh, right, okay. I didn't know that Athletic Club was Athletic Bilbao.
Yeah, they've changed the name.
Ah, okay. I didn't know that. Right.
They could perhaps expect to be higher. Same with Hoffenheim in 12th, and Mourinho's Fenerbahce, which is United's next fixture away, which the fixtures don't get any easier in Europe for United at the moment. Speaking of United, another team you would expect to be higher in 21st. Pretty grim.
They've not deserved it though, have they?
No, they haven't. You're right. Pretty grim viewing, but it sort of sums up United's season at the moment. But much like the Champions League, there's been a few surprises, and again I think it's down to the format. So I think it's been welcomed. Porto and Real Sociedad, another teams you would expect to be higher up the table.
Porto usually do quite well, don't they?
Yes, I think they were an outside bet for this, although they have changed their approach to signings. They're sort of fixating more on younger players. I think they're restricted with their transfer budget a little bit.
Okay, right.
But the striker they bought in from Atletico Madrid, he looks
Samo Omarodon.
Yeah, he looks a player, and you can see why Chelsea were linked with him.
Well, Chelsea would have been robbed because I think Atletico accepted 15 million from Porto for him, but Chelsea were going to pay 40.
Exactly.
It was due to image rights, wasn't it, that the move broke down? They agreed a deal, but he said it was disrespectful, I think.
I think that rings a bell.
I can't afford to know too much about that, Will, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, it rings a bell, but I can't be certain.
Pretty sure that's what happened, but yeah.
Yeah, as I said, it rings a bell, so you could be right there. But anyway, another team that should be doing better for their calibre is Roma, who are currently in 27th
they gave
position.
Rossi the boots, didn't they, recently?
Yes, they did. I can't remember who they bought in. But yeah, they did. Showing perhaps Mourinho did a better job than he was given credit for.
Yeah.
Obviously won Roma the Conference League, but at the
He had a
foot of
falling
this,
out, didn't he, with management upstairs, I think, probably.
yes, he did.
Which is usually the Mourinho story. He usually do well and then usually falls out with someone and then he's out the door.
Yes, at the foot of the table, is Turkish league giants Besiktas. So again, in this table, I've spoke about a lot of teams underperforming and being underwhelming. I think for the standards they've set themselves, they're another team that fall into that bracket, especially with the reputation they've built up. Granted, it is only 2 games in, but yeah, that concludes the Europa League table. Unless you boys want to mention any other teams.
Just a quick one from me, just to say that this part of the reason why I think that the Europa League, not so much the Conference League, because I do think that the quality drop off in the Conference League is major. But specifically with the Europa League, there's not that much of a. It feels like a lot of teams all within similar. Obviously, there's big teams in it, but it's all teams of similar quality because it's like the 5th and 6th best placed team in each league. So a lot of the time, it'll be teams like Lyon or Lazio, and then it'll be somebody like a Spurs or a United, for instance. So
Are you gonna ask us for who we think they will win the Europa League, Ben?
Yes, well, that's what I was going on to.
Oh,
But I'll let George finish.
no,
sorry,
that was literally all I was going to say. Is that
Yeah.
I like the fact that you've got teams that are all of a similar level, and I also think that if you are going to ask me for a winner, I think it's incredibly difficult because it's a lot more wide open than the Champions League, I think.
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
no, I agree with that.
So, if I was to point a gun to your head and say, pick a team, who would you go for?
I think for me, even though they slightly struggled, I think I think Ajax would be one of my first picks to win the Europa League. But yeah, like George said, it's a bit more difficult to predict than the Champions League. But yeah, I'll go with Ajax.
I will go ahead and I am going to shout for. Oh my god, it's so difficult. I think Spurs have got a good chance.
Mind you,
Yes.
maybe Leon have a good chance.
I
as
think
well, maybe.
Roma aren't a bad shout.
Going into the season, I would have said United, but having seen the way our season has panned
It's been
out,
a car crash, hasn't it?
I don't think we'll win it. Having said that, Ten Hag does win trophies, so we'll see. But yeah, thank you for that.
2 trophies in 2 years. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter whether we're fucking shite.
Well, we've fucking we're so bad. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about United. I'll move on to the Conference League now. So this is a competition with lesser teams in it. No disrespect, but
No,
So
it's a fairly new competition, isn't it, compared to the Europa League, formerly the UEFA Cup, and then the Champions League, formerly the European Cup. So yeah,
I think asking for the winner in this one is a bit more straightforward because I think
Chelsea.
for me, there are three
let's
teams that are
let's
way above
start
the
off
quality
with the
of the rest.
winner.
Yeah, go on.
So I'll start off with the winner. So I'll come to you first, Will. Who do you
Okay,
think?
yeah. So I jumped the gun a bit, but yeah, I think Chelsea to win the Conference League.
And George, are you in agreement?
Well, I'm gonna say yes, but I want to also say that you've also got Istanbul Başakşehir here. You've also got Real Betis, and you've also got Fiorentina. So, I mean, if you look at the quality of the Conference League, it is extremely like the drop from the Europa League to the Conference League is huge.
Yes.
So, I think if Chelsea didn't win it,
then that would be very poor for them.
Then it's pretty shocking.
Yeah. Be
and that is no disrespect to anybody, but even with the the kind of transition that Chelsea are in, I still think that they could easily turn over most of that league.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with that as well.
Yeah, so that leads me on to the table. So I'll say the top 8 and then pick out some teams. So first, having played one game this time and not two, is Celeste Bruges. I assume they're in the Belgian Pro
I've heard
League.
of Club Bruges. Who's this? Sorry.
Cercle Bruges. They're in the Belgian Pro League.
Right, so never heard of them. I've heard of Club Bruges, but yeah, no one.
There's
other
two
than that.
Bruges teams.
Right.
Second, we have Ammonia, formerly formerly managed by Neil Lennon, I believe. They came to Old Trafford a couple of seasons ago, and the keeper had a madness. He performed wonders. Moving on to third, we have Paphos. Because I've heard of them, to be fair, but they sound Greek. Similar with the
Cyprus again.
So, thank you. Similarly with the fourth place team, Lugano, I think. Again, not really heard of them, don't know much about them. Switzerland, thank you, George. Fifth place, we have Molde, formerly managed by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
I always thought it was Mould, and then because the E was silent, so I thought it was Mould. So
well, I think some people say Mould, some people say Mould.
right, okay, yeah.
But obviously, Haaland.
No, it is Molde.
Okay, right, okay.
Obviously, Haaland formerly played for them as well. So they're doing well. Sixth place, as we touched on, Chelsea. I expect them to win the whole thing as well. And here's a fact for you. You probably know this, George. But if Chelsea win the competition, then they will have officially won everything there is to win in football.
Yeah, I do know that, yeah.
Well, yeah, because they won the Champions League, they won the Premier League, they won the FA Cup.
They've won everything, yeah.
Club World Cup, have they won that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Community Shield. I imagine they would have
Yeah.
won that as well.
Yeah, they've won everything if they win that competition. Seventh place we have Vitória of the Portuguese league, and making up the top eight is Fiorentina. Now, I just wanted to touch on them because we said before about stories in the European League.
Jordan gave them a name check before, so.
Yeah, a story for me is De Gea going back and getting his career back on track with Fiorentina last week or the week before. He saved a couple of penalties. So fair play to him, obviously. Being formerly of United, I like to see it. Moving down the table, we have Hearts of the Scottish League.
Yes, I've heard of them. Yeah.
In 10th position, who have today, I think, just announced Neil Critchley as their manager.
Yeah, correct.
So,
Good appointment.
That is a good appointment.
I'd be experienced manager, so.
Yes, I'd be interested to see how that unfolds.
Didn't he formerly manage Blackpool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Steve Bruce took over from.
Okay, right.
Yeah, exactly. Lower down the table, similar to the Champions League, we have a few big hitters of the UEFA Conference League. We have Panathinaikos in 19th.
Are they Greek?
Yes, they are. I'm not going to say what I was going to say, actually. So, moving on to 24th position, another big hitter, you would say, for the standard of the competition is Copenhagen, who last season were in the Champions League. So for them, they've had a bit of a fall off, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
25th and 26th is Istanbul Başakşehir.
Didn't Ozil, that was the team he left Arsenal for, wasn't it?
He left.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I know he's retired now, but yeah.
26th is Real Betis. Could be wrong on this, but is Manuel Pellegrini still their manager?
Think so.
Yes, and they've still got a few decent players. So former players in the Premier League, I believe, still. So I expect them to pick up a bit. 28th is...
Yeah, it's still Pellegrini, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. 28th is another team with a decent reputation, especially for the Conference League. It is the Belgian team Ghent who will be hoping for a turn in fortunes. Now, that is really the teams that are recognisable in the table. If I speak about any more, I'll just be waffling because I'd be lying if I said much about the other team. Do any of you boys want to talk about any teams I've missed? Or?
No, I don't think so. No, because
I would just like to mention TNS, who are, of course, in the Welsh Premier League. And as far as I'm aware, a Welsh Premier League team has never been in Europe before.
TNS, I've never heard of them.
So that's a huge story. And yeah, I don't really know how well they're gonna do, but
I would suggest not very well, but for their sake and the storyline of it all, I hope so. Just before we wrap up, do any of you boys want to talk about stories in the European League? Obviously, I touched on Pogba and De Gea. Any more?
not particularly. I
No,
mean,
I don't think there's anything I want to add that we've not said already.
there is something that I do want to mention that's probably deserves to go back to the Premier League where we were, but it's just come through over the last couple of hours that Ineos have removed Sir Alex Ferguson from the global ambassador role.
Oh yes, I saw that. Yeah,
at Manchester United, which I think is a absolutely huge misstep for them, and probably the first one they've made.
Well, see, it's gonna divide opinion because there'll be people who think it's a utter disgrace with what Fergie did for the club.
He's still a non-executive director, though, isn't he?
I know. 2 seconds, Will. I know Cantona came out and he had.
Sorry, hilarious.
He had a very firm stance on that decision. On the flip side, there'll be people who say, well, it's shown they can be ruthless. It's shown that they're not here to mess about. Maybe they don't want Fergie interfering. So it's definitely going to be a thing what divides opinion, but it's very, very brave and very bold.
Yes, completely agree.
Anything more to add? Or?
No, I don't think
No,
so.
Personally, I think I think it's time to bring us home.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, I'll do that. So, my thanks to the lads. Thank you, boys.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, it's been a great show. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we've spoke about a lot there. Don't forget to like, share, and comment on Will's channel, and we'll see you on the next one.